Well, I'm responsible for obviously increasing or trying to increase or maintain the strength of every player, and to improve flexibility when it's necessary, to work on speed, conditioning. Then obviously rehab comes into play when we get into those scenarios. And I also help or supervise the nutritional aspect quite a bit too. It's fairly similar. When we get into our season, our schedule is so nuts that we just beg and borrow and get stuff done when we can. And so it's much less of, obviously we don't get quite as much done in season as we do during the off season. But we try to taper back more as the playoffs go on. I mean, there's a conscious effort to taper back, and we'll actually unload, do what we call an unloading phase if we reach the finals. It revolves around the fact that an athlete expends so much energy, and also there's a certain amount of breakdown on the cellular level and the muscular level, and it's replenishing and repairing and all of those aspects, so that the next time the athlete competes, he's hopefully just as strong as he was the time before. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's very, very important, especially considering the schedule that we have. And so when you're playing 82 games and sometimes well, no more than 4 games a week, generally speaking, but you're also traveling during that whole period of time, your sleep clock is all messed up and those types of things. Recovery becomes a very important aspect, and you really have to try to do as many tricks as you can to try to enhance it, because there's a lot of things that are working against you. Well, one thing we try to do is obviously we supplement our athletes, because I think that's, in today's society, especially with what we're doing and the schedule, like I said, that we have, it's very hard to maybe replenish all of the nutrients we need just by eating basic food. And so we try to target recovery by supplementing with different supplements that we feel are very beneficial to us. It's going to depend upon the age of the high school athlete to begin with. As you get into your freshman, there may be a scenario here where they're not quite as mature yet. Maybe they haven't reached puberty in some scenarios. And in those cases, you have to really develop a strong base and worry, you're not going to lift necessarily real heavy weights at that point in time, because you don't want to injure growth plates and that aspect. But as they get older and they've reached puberty and they mature, a lot of the things become very similar in a lot of ways. You're still going to cycle them. You're going to cycle them into heavy weights, as well as create hypertrophy, what we call hypertrophy with low weights or not as heavy weights with a higher volume type of thing. And we always start athletes that way. We always try to create a huge base or a hypertrophy of the muscle, the enlarging of the muscle, by doing high volume types of exercises with lower weights initially, and then we kind of cycle into the heavier weights as we build that base up. You could consider them to be the same in some aspects. Core strength is the new sexy word as far as fitness goes, and it's important. It's very important. But it's just one aspect, and so, also sport-specific conditioning and strengthening through movements that particular athletes do in a particular sport, all of those are just as much a part of the equation as the core strength too. So I can't say you want to ignore one just for the other. But on the same hand, obviously, core strength is very, very important. it's a big piece of the puzzle. I mean, you know, you are what you eat, as we all know. And so if you don't eat the right nutrients, if you don't get the right things to help you recover on the cellular level, then you're not going to be as efficient, you're not going to be as good, and obviously not as effective then. We use, predominantly we use a glutamine branched chain amino load called Nutribuild. And we've used it for, geez, I would say 10 years now, actually maybe 11 years, and we've had great success with it. And so that's one of our primary supplements that we use, and we ingest it or try to ingest it a couple times a day. It's been heavily researched at the Ball State Human Performance Lab, and we're very comfortable with the results. We've used it in the Olympics, we've used it, so you know, it's clean, it's what it says it is, and it's very effective, it's very targeted. We actually regulate weight, body fat, and those are the two main areas that we try to regulate as much as possible. If it came down to it, I mean, we might run blood work on a player if we felt there were some issues there or something like that, but a lot of it is just based on experience and feel and looking at those two parameters there too. Yeah, I mean, we basically, for example, with the Spurs, what we do is we provide our players with breakfast before practice. We provide them with lunch after practice. On game day, we provide them with a pregame meal. We have some type of food on the road and at home for after games. And then, once again, we supplement. So I have an intern, I have an assistant, but every one of our players is given supplements before and after practice. It's right there in their locker, and it's all taken care of. I mean, we're very, very, I would say, structured in the way that we administer all of that. Well, I think pregame, obviously, one of the misconceptions, you don't really want to eat a lot of protein pregame because it takes a lot of energy to break it down. So pregame, we're looking at more like your pastas and your grains. Anything with grains or potatoes too are a good pregame, along with fruits and vegetables. And you know, you can have some protein in there, but you just don't want a huge amount because, like we said, it takes a lot of energy to break it down, and that's not what you want to accomplish in a pregame scenario. Now, postgame, whole different ballgame. You're trying to replace things that are in your body that are obviously going to help regenerate any damage to cells and that thing, and that aspect, along with your glycogen. So there's a bigger mix of protein in the post-game scenario where we're going to get more protein in there too, but we're still going to get a lot of carbs. A lot of fruits and vegetables are all important because replacing those glycogen stores for the next day are very important.